Hey everybody. So I know that we have been working on our narrative writing pieces for this class. And now that those drafts are done, I want to talk a little bit about going in and doing some self-revision, specifically focused around being more descriptive as a writer so that our readers are more immersed in the stories that we're sharing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to do a brief walkthrough of how you can make your writing more descriptive, and show you how I would do it. So I'm going to show you my thought process. And then from there, you're going to have some time to go in and do it yourself as well. So I've highlighted a selection or a portion of my writing that I wanted to share with you guys. So I'm just going to read it aloud first. The only thing I want you to do right now is just listen. You should see it up on your screen. And then we're going to kind of take apart that piece and add more descriptive pieces to expand it and also to make it more interesting for readers. So here we go. It says, I started my walk home, the familiar pavement beneath my feet providing a strange comfort. I carefully avoided all the cracks, each step a small act of defiance against the day's earlier chaos. Dogs barked at me from behind fences, and chickens watched me with beady eyes, their heads bobbing rhythmically as I passed. The walk home always seemed to recycle the same events, and I often wondered if I was dreaming, trapped in a loop of repetitive scenes. I kept my head down, focusing on the cracks in the sidewalk. Now, although it is pretty descriptive, I think that there are some ways we can go in and tweak it just a little bit to make it even more descriptive for our reader. So we're going to walk through that process here in just a second. So what I would like you guys to do is during this time, I'm going to do a quick think aloud. I want you guys to, number one, listen to the things that I'm saying and how I say them to myself. And then number two, I want you to take any notes on what you notice and what you wonder. And those things we're going to bring as a whole group to each other once this segment is done. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to get ready for that. And then we're going to go ahead and jump into this, okay? So now that we're all ready, I want to start, and we're going to take this sentence by sentence, okay? I want to start with the first sentence. I started my walk home, the familiar pavement beneath my feet, providing a strange comfort. Now, when I look at this sentence, I start thinking, the only question I have as a reader, and I'll read it again. I started my walk home, the familiar pavement beneath my feet, providing a strange comfort. If I'm reading this, I'm like, what kind of comfort? What are you talking about? So what I could do after this sentence is perhaps provide an example of what that strange comfort could be. So maybe here I'm thinking, okay, if I want to be more descriptive and I'm really trying to appeal to my audience, what is a strange comfort? So I could say, it reminded me of Sunday mornings and having to jump out of bed to start cleaning before Nana came stomping in. And so I'll just fix some of these pieces, but that would be my extension to that sentence. So again, as I'm thinking about this, I'm questioning, like as I'm reading, I'm questioning. So I started my walk home, the familiar pavement beneath my feet, providing a strange comfort. What kind of comfort is the author talking about? Oh, it reminded them of Sunday mornings and having to get out of bed and clean before their grandma came and yelled at them. So that's stomping on the pavement. That's what that comfort is, that strange comfort. Okay. So there's one piece. Now, if I move on to the next sentence, it says, I carefully avoided all the cracks, each step a small act of defiance against the day's earlier chaos. Now, with that sentence, I think what I could do as the author is I could add something there, but I want to note that it's referring to the paragraph that came before it. And so it talks a little bit more about like what happened in the morning, as you'll be able to see, and how she got in trouble at school. So that's what it's referring to. I think I'll leave that there. Otherwise, it's going to sound too repetitive. So I think for me, I'm gonna leave that sentence as is, and I don't think I'm going to try and you make it more descriptive. So I'm going to move on to the next sentence. Dogs barked at me from behind the fences, and chickens watched me with beady eyes, their heads bobbing rhythmically as I passed. The walk home, oh, I'm going to stop right there. Dogs barked at me from behind fences, and chickens watched me with beady eyes, their heads bobbing rhythmically as I passed. I feel like that is pretty descriptive. As I'm reading it, I can almost envision like the dogs barking. I can see the chickens like looking, maybe following you as you're walking past the fence. So I think I'm going to leave that as is as well. I feel really good about that as the writer. And so I think what I'm going to do next is move on to the next sentence. So the walk home always seemed to recycle the same events. And I often wondered if I was dreaming, trapped in a loop of repetitive scenes. I think for me right here, as the writer, I do think that this should be two sentences. So I'm going to put a period here. But I also feel like the walk home always seemed to recycle the same events. I feel like I could be more descriptive and elaborate on that. So as I'm thinking of, like, I talked about the dogs barking, I talked about the chickens watching me with beady eyes, and if I'm the author, I am referring to those events, but I could also talk a little bit about, like, maybe the houses, maybe the people that I saw as well. So it's like the walk home always seemed to recycle the same events where I saw the same people doing different things. Or maybe I'd say the same people, yet in different parts of their yards, tending to their plants or their pets. And I think from here, I could even add an additional descriptive sentence now that I'm thinking about it. But I think I'll pause right there for right now because I want to move on to the next sentence, which says, I often wondered if I was dreaming, trapped in a loop of repetitive scenes. I think I'm going to leave that as is, as the writer. And if I move to the next sentence, I have my head down, focusing on the cracks in the sidewalk. I want to add just something else at the end there. I kept my head down, focusing on the cracks in the sidewalk. I almost feel like if I'm the writer, there's a reason why I'm keeping my head down and I'm focusing on those cracks. And that's like my thing that I'm looking at. In my mind, it's like it's my goal to help me know when I'm getting home. So I might say my only goal was to get home without disruption. And I think I would stop right there. So not as descriptive as some of the other sentences, but I feel like it for me as the author, it finishes that thought in that paragraph. So I want you to go ahead and I'm going to stop. I want you to pause. I want you to share with a partner what are some of the things you noticed, what are some of the things you wondered about my Think Aloud, my process as a writer, of how I went into this small paragraph and I made it a little bit bigger. But I think more importantly, it's not always to make the writing more, but sometimes it's the small tweaks that make you feel as the reader that you're more immersed in the world. And so I added a few sentences, I've changed up a few words, and I think that that is part of our revision process when we're thinking about how we can make it more descriptive. So I'm going to give you guys time to think about how you want to tweak your paragraphs, your writing, and then we're going to do some conferencing and some working time here in just a second.